morning. At least it's morning here, 6:43. Been listening to Mere Christianity on actually on YouTube, and kind of binging C.S. Lewis right now. But he's talking about lust, chastity, and he's using the appetite as a metaphor for food. It's a really interesting chapter, and it really got me thinking. And it's kind of connecting the dots on some other things that, some other ideas that I've had in the past about what makes someone virtuous. What makes you virtuous? What makes you noble, or brave, or strong, or weak for that matter? And why? It's connected to another idea. Why do we love tyranny? All of these things are connected, and so I'll start with the metaphor that he uses. So he's saying that the appetite of the flesh is something that, just like our appetite for food, it was created for a purpose. Obviously, that's true, and that it is good in and of itself. It is a good. Obviously, to eat food nourishes the body, gives us energy, helps us to sustain our mental capacities, to heal properly if our diet is correct, and so it has an intended outcome that's clear from its design, and yet we don't do it. We oftentimes, maybe you do, but a lot of people here in the United States, especially, they do eat, so they've got that going for them. But what they eat and how they eat and why they eat, those aren't towards that aim of sustainment, of increased health, of wellness, of healing, of the purposes that it was designed for. And same with the lust that's in our heart. There's a desire, there's a purity in sexual desire, because it's what allows humanity to procreate, but it has strict limitations for what it's designed for, and it has confinement in that, because primarily Lewis, I think, is making the case that that outside of that is chaos, and so in order to make the best argument, though, he makes the case for design and function. I think that there are other arguments that can be used, certainly, but I like his from a purely pragmatic use or argument. But so how does that connect to tyranny? I think I know my weaknesses. I think some of you, I think we know each other's weaknesses. Some of the things, if you have an indulgence problem with food, it tends to not be very well hidden. We try using clothing or pills or other means to conceal that, but it's not easy. And so what we'd like to do is, and this comes in two various forms that we like when it comes to the rules above us, let's say. If we want people to be healthy, if we want our own selves to be healthy, and we have no constraint for that, then it has to be imposed on us through tyranny. And if we judge someone else to come up short of our virtues, short of the virtues that we hold dear, like overeating or overindulgence, and we don't want other people doing that, then we have to have a government that does that for us. And that's so comforting for people. It's why a lot of kids long to go home. At first, when they leave the house, you'll probably find this, or you've probably found this if you're a teenager and you've gone off to college for your first year, that there's something about the confinement of living under your parents' house that it is comforting, because you didn't know your own limitations. You didn't know what your ethic. You don't know what your ethics are until you have the opportunity to stretch those out. And so you become your own master. You become, until you are your own master, you don't know how cruel or benevolent you are to yourself. And across what period of time are you cruel or benevolent? Because you might have a weakness, or something might go wrong, and so your immediate benevolence to yourself is something like, okay, well, I got to make this feeling go away, so I'm going to eat something, or I'm going to do something that makes me feel better, to take away this other thing that's hurting. And if you're living with your parents and you decide that you're going to overindulge on food, or if they have alcohol in the house, you're going to do something to satiate that hurt or that emotion, they're going to see that, and there's going to be consequences for that, especially if you're growing up in a Christian household, or a household that has a strict code of conduct for the food in the house. It becomes obvious. My brother, my youngest brother, God bless his soul, he's the one who passed away a few years ago. But he had my mom, I think, was out of town for the weekend, and he had a few people over and found the box wine that was in my mom's fridge, and there were no. He had probably been drinking some of the box wine, because it's 2 or I don't know how many liters a box of wine is, but he had probably been sipping on it. But I think he drank the whole dang box in a night, and simply because he didn't have any limitations. There was no one watching him. My mom was out of town. He probably thought, well, I don't think he was thinking, what the consequences, those are for tomorrow, but the feelings that I have, those are for today. And so, but he didn't escape. he didn't escape. He didn't escape. My mom was getting ready to sell the house. I still feel Keegan has passed away, and yet I still feel bad sharing his story, even though, but I don't know, he's probably blushing somewhere. And he vomited up all of the box wine on the carpet that on the stairs of my mom's house, and that she was in the process of selling. I think someone was looking at the house like 2 or 3 days from the time that happened. And what's my point in telling this? Well, when you lose that tyranny, and you act out in freedom, or what you think of as in freedom, you're actually just enslaved to a new master. And you are not a good master. And the Bible says something along the lines of every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And that's because at some point you're going to realize, and it might be when you die. Hopefully not. Hopefully you can find what it is that is Christian freedom before that. But you want a good master. A good master is how you have freedom. The world thinks that freedom is something like what Keegan was doing the night of the party with the box of wine. That ultimately that expression of freedom is exercised in being able to do anything you want, say anything you want, consume anything you want. And yet that's not true. True freedom is being, in a Christian sense, is being able to worship God in His fullness, with what He's given you. And there's nothing more satisfying. If you ask, maybe someday you'll be able to ask Keegan, was it good wine? He should tell you no, because it came from a box. But maybe he'll tell you that there was an immediate gratification that he got from that consumption. But was it good? Was it worth him exercising his freedom? No. No, it wasn't. And so, going back to the tyranny, what if you want a society then that ultimately never consumes alcohol or box wine in this case, and you want to have everyone be exactly what you want them to be, maybe not overweight, or maybe sexually chaste, or not promiscuous. And so you enforce rules and laws that make them behave. Maybe for some that reaches the heart, but ultimately the wonderful and beautiful thing about Christianity is that it doesn't make those laws for the purpose of the law. It makes it what Christ does, and Paul in his letters explains this so beautifully. I'm in Colossians right now, and he does it for us. It's something like, you can be your own master, or you can set up rules for so that some terrible tyrant can rule over you. But ultimately, what's going to be the best for you is if you serve me, if you serve Christ, out of love, not strictly out of duty. I mean, there is duty in love. Don't get me wrong. But when you have that, like when you're able to serve Christ in love, you do all of those things. You adopt the mindset and comportment of Christ because you want to be more like Him, and you've tasted and seen that He's good. Now, you're gonna fail at that. I fail at that every single day. And what I love about Lewis is he's not approaching this. He says something like, it's not about being able to do Christianity perfectly. It's about, I'm paraphrasing, it's about willing the self. It's about willing your heart to be aligned to Christ and to become more like Him. And you're never. He says this. I think he makes this point in The Great Divorce, which I also, like I said, I'm binging C.S. Lewis. Read recently. If you haven't read The Great Divorce, I strongly recommend it. It's a masterpiece. But he makes this point in how he's describing heaven, or this place that he's having his protagonist encounter, that whatever it is that you've bound in and of yourself here on earth, it's going to be bound in heaven. It's going to be bound in eternity. And so what's so striking about our time here is that God gives us opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to direct our lives to be more like Him, so that in eternity we can know Him in the most full way possible. And so, and that's not an instinctual move. Like, it's not something that you do once. Now, are there people like, can you get saved if you ask Jesus into your heart on your deathbed? I don't know. I would assume so, because God is merciful and just, and if you ask for forgiveness of sins on your deathbed, and you accept the love of Christ in your heart, Jesus forgives you of your sins. Your sins are washed away, and you get to enter heaven as a new man. Now, is it the same? I don't know. I can tell you that knowing Christ here on earth, and in the times when I've lived as if I didn't know who Christ was, the times when I'm behaving as if I knew, as if I am in relationship with God, those are the best moments that I've had in life. And my purpose right now is to try and do that as often, to live in that pursuit of Him with as much of my life as I possibly can, and to grow in that daily. I heard a politician say the other day, I won't say who, no, it's not Donald Trump, because I don't think he would have said it this way, but it might be true for all politicians. I don't know. He said, I have enough skeletons in my closet that if they were all to get voting rights, I would win an election in a landslide. And I thought, oh, how wonderfully self-aware. It made me. This person's a Democrat, but and obviously authentic in their, and it seemed authentic in how they spoke it about themselves. And I thought, that's the kind of awareness we have to have as Christians. So you have to understand you're not perfect, and if you act like you are, people are going to miss that. I had diverted there. I'm not exactly sure why, but I think that it's a great quote. Back to the tyranny, though. What happens? So when a society starts to break down, and you still want to hold on to those moral and virtuous things because you see that the outcomes of those morals and virtues are creating a good, you then have to impose those things on people against their will. So if you want a society that grows, well, you need to make sure that how people are viewing procreation is aimed towards that goal in the best way possible, and that the children who come out of that also maintain that point of view. Across Asia and the West, we're seeing declines in population and declines in people who are having intimate relationships with each other, and a lot of that is becoming. I think a lot of that is because most of our base instincts we can get from something that's cheap versus something that's real, and that's true for food too. I mean, think about how go into a grocery store and count how many items have more than 20 ingredients in them, and then go back and find all of how many of those 20 ingredients end in the word "ide," monochloride and calcium fluoride, and I'm making up "ide" words. Those things aren't real. Like they're obviously real things, but like the food itself isn't created towards the purpose of sustaining you, growing you, helping you become more of who you could be. The purpose of those things is to cause immediate satiation. And so the more that we fill our lives with things like that, the more that we open the door for other things that are not real to come in. I'm saying a lot of things. So, one of the things that you could do is adopt a very strict diet, and develop discipline, and that's probably a good thing to do. Or you impose that discipline on everyone who's in your society for their own health and well-being. I think this is a lesser option. Why? Why is it that tyranny and law that are imposed on us is lesser than discipline and personal choice? Because we were created to be free. We were created to be autonomous, to pursue what is good. Philippians talks about this in the middle of chapter 4. Therefore, brothers, whatever is, and he goes on to list out all of these things. Seek after those things. What is real is a reflection of God, and its purpose is in His design. That's not to say that those things are God. Now that happens. People worship things like sex and food. And I'll end with this. What Lewis says, that's a reflection of starvation. That when things like sex become so perverse, or food becomes so perverse, you have overindulgence, and the cheap being substituted for something that's real. It's a sign not necessarily of too much, but it's a marker of not enough. Because if people have enough of the real thing, they don't go looking for the fake.